Graphene was discovered a touch over 20 years ago. It's a pure carbon material in a hexagonal lattice structure, and it was isolated from graphite originally by two scientists in Manchester. Ever since then, graphene has been widely touted as a super material, and that's because of its variety of very extraordinary properties. However, it's been a difficult material to commercialize for a number of reasons. I think there's been a few hype cycles over the journey since its discovery, and in the past 12 to 18 months, we've certainly felt like there's been an inflection point where more and more companies are commercializing graphene enhanced materials, and that traction is flowing through into increasing interest again in the sector as a whole. So I think part of it is time. There's been time to work through some of the issues. I think the manufacturing processes are not only diversifying but also getting better and more consistent. And then the people working with graphene in those industrial materials are also being more effective in what they're trying to do and really understanding that it's not a one-size-fits-all material. It's a material that really needs to be understood and selected and characterized properly for the particular end use, because it is a very complex material and very different across all of the different grades that are available in the market. So I think there are a few reasons as to why we are seeing that increasing commercial traction, and a lot of it comes down to understanding and continued progress working with the materials in a variety of different forms. So that's right. Sparc has not produced and does not produce graphene itself. It works with a variety of sources of graphene, and in particular, it works to incorporate those materials into protective coatings, which is where our flagship product, Sparc, sits. We made that decision not to produce graphene at the start of the establishment of the business, and it was based on an understanding that graphene, as I mentioned, is not a one-size-fits-all material. It really does need to be selected appropriately for the end use. And by being agnostic and flexible on where we source graphene, we feel like we have the best chances of utilizing the best materials for the job. And in the case of protective coatings, that's looking at anti-corrosion. But we also have products more broadly in coating in other areas of coatings. For example, in electrostatic and conductive coatings, we work with different graphene sources than what we do in protective coatings. So it really comes down to the fact that graphene needs to be selected appropriately for the job it's doing, and we feel that it's an advantage being able to source graphene from a variety of different sources rather than being beholden to our own production source. We've been developing our Sparc graphene additive for protective coatings over 6 years now of testing and trials. The protective coatings industry really relates to coatings that are used on steel, heavy steel infrastructure in particular, where you're looking at a coating to protect and mitigate against corrosion. So the areas where our graphene additives are most effective are in the high end, the highly corrosive areas of the market. And graphene in the form of our Sparc additive is proven over now 9 rounds of cyclic corrosion testing, which is up to 6 months per test, to consistently improve the anti-corrosion performance of existing commercial coatings on the market. So our work with AkzoNobel has been ongoing for a number of years. We commenced field trials in one of their protective coatings products called Interzone 954 2 years ago, and we recently commercialized that product with them in Australia in terms of including our graphene additive, which is again called Sparc. So the qualification processes in this industry are long, and it's because corrosion, number one, is a slow process. So even under accelerated conditions, to see corrosion, you're looking at months in the lab. And secondly, the field trials are also really important to de-risk the product. So there's a number of steps that you need to go through to get into the market. We feel like that's a competitive edge that we now have, being first to market with our EcoSparc additives. And it's a fact of life that it's a fairly risk-averse industry that is data-driven. So we've produced the data according to what the industry requires, and that requires a lot of time to go with it. So thankfully, we've been through a number of those hurdles now, and we're well and truly into the commercial rollout phase for the EcoSparc additives at the moment.